The sun's rays illuminated the schoolyard. His name was Ping. Today was April 5, 2008. The students were sitting at their desks. Location: First High School, Year 3, Form 4. Ping finally began to accept the shocking reality. The hero sat back and thought about how he had entered a world parallel to his past decade. In fact, this world was different from his past life. Red banners hung from the wall of the building. A man with short hair stood in the classroom and called out to Ping and Chen, reminding them that they had 2 days left to enroll in martial arts and asking if they were going to enroll. The hero thought that the National College entrance exam was still running, but now there was an additional entrance subject: martial arts. Chen scratched his forehead with a pen and said that the entrance fee was 10,000, and knowing that he would not pass, he thought it was a waste of money. Our hero was surprised to hear about the 10,000 entry fee. The student standing nearby lowered his eyes and said that he wanted to enroll even though this was the only chance for the mediocre to become outstanding. They were interrupted by a comrade who came to the table and shouted, asking if everyone had seen the news yesterday that a great master would soon break through to the 8th stage. He also said that they had officially challenged the representative of the Pacific region. The boy and the second student with blonde hair were surprised, answering that the gentleman had only broken through to the 7th stage a few years ago. Ping looked puzzled. The rest of the class turned around, hearing that this was the truth and that it was mentioned in the report. The blonde student asked if the ranking had been updated yet and that Ma should be in the top 30. The protagonist thought, smiling, that he had watched a lot of Isekai on TV in his previous life, and after observing their excitement for a while, it became obvious that being a martial artist was a first-class profession. He turned to his friend and asked, "That Master Ma, is this Manhwa Ping?" But Chen frowned and said that it was disrespectful to call a master by his first name. The protagonist realized that it was indeed Manhwa Ping, and only smiled awkwardly. After that, he demonstratively hit himself on the lips and said that he had not been watching his language at all lately, thinking that it was better to search on the internet, and that it was too suspicious to ask so many questions. Smiling, putting his hand on the back of his head, Ping asked his friend if there were any internet cafes nearby, to which he received the answer that there were and the protagonist often went there. He laughed awkwardly again, saying that he had just not been there for a long time, and thinking that since it was still there, that great manager was probably still there. Ping imagined the girl, thinking that he still remembered how he was in school back then. She would always appear in his dreams and do embarrassing things to the point of hell. The sign was white with red letters. Ping looked at the receptionist in surprise, thinking that he had such a terrible taste when he was young. What the hell? This is not what he remembers. But the girl interrupted his thoughts with a smile, asking if he wanted to top up his account. Top up with $50 at once. He would get more. Looking at the little money in his hand, the guy just thought that it didn't look like he was swimming in money. The receptionist threw him a pass on the table when Ping said no. He would top up with 5, commenting that he was poor and still looking at their internet. Here is his temporary membership card. Ping looked at her in confusion, wondering if she had changed her attitude too quickly. They really wouldn't be happy if they didn't have money. Later, the hero was already sitting in front of the computer. The guy opened his mouth and cursed. Frowning, he said, "I simply must take part in this exam." Imagining different people of different ages, the hero thought that in this world, there are some unspoken rules that everyone has known since childhood. No matter what you do, strength can give everything, as well as take away. Local cultivators are very different from those in novels. Cultivators have unrivaled status and influence in society. They are divided into 9 stages, from the lowest to the highest. In this world, only cultivators are allowed to establish companies. Once you reach the 3rd stage, you can become a governor. The same goes for the entertainment industry. Several hands reached out to the NEBI, the National Martial Arts Examination. This is the only hope for those who wish to achieve success. That is why Giant said that this is the only way to stand out from the crowd and become someone truly strong. Scratching his head, the hero thought that everything can't be so simple. Only the entry fee is $10,000, and there are only 2 more days left before the registration period begins. Someone had their eyes closed and other black streak. Ping was unhappy that all those characters from manga and anime are reborn with outright cheats, so why the hell can't he even pay the entry fee? Where are his promise cheats? Sitting in front of the monitor, the hero had a thought that maybe his family is rich enough in this world. Who knows, maybe he even lives in his own villa. Later, he stood in front of a shabby house, smiling nervously. He realized that no one pulled his tongue. Having gone up to the floor, the hero opened the door. Looking around the room, Ping recognized the familiar damp smell, the same shabby house. Someone's footsteps were heard with a cry that the main character is a thief. Ping took off his shoes when he saw the girl in front of him. She held out her hand, demanding her money back. He looked at her in surprise, thinking about that round face. Then he stood up and grabbed the girl by the cheeks. She was confused. The hero thought that it was his sister, Yuan. He always felt sorry for her, losing her cute face when she grew up. But then she knocked his hands away from her face and demanded his money back again. His sister practically blew steam out of her ears, telling him not to play dumb. Mom left 50 for both of them, so why did she only have $5 on the table? Looking away, he thought that part of the 28 was hers, but pretending not to understand, Ping told her that he didn't know, maybe she had already spent it, let her look again. Then Yuen ran to her mother, asking her to do something. The hero thought that it looked like he regularly extorted pocket money. The woman turned to her daughter, telling her not to be hysterical, her father would be back for dinner soon. It was his mother, Yuen, who looked quite young. Ping looked at her with his big eyes, thinking that at this time she had to work part-time with a monthly salary of $800 to take care of him and his sister. How could he even ask her for $10,000? At this moment, a man entered the house and asked if dinner was ready. His father, Fan Min-jun, an ordinary worker at a factory. Considering that he inhales a lot of dust, which can affect his health, his monthly salary is $3,000. The hero looked at him. He wanted to turn to him, but was immediately confused when his father asked why he was still in his school uniform, let him quickly tidy himself up and sit down at the table, to which he only replied that he had just arrived. Then Yuen ran to her father, saying that her brother stole the money again, let him tell him something already, but Ping asked him not to listen to her. Later, the whole family gathered at the table. Holding a plate in his hands, the hero thought that he had to admit that if he did not pass the exam, he would not be able to change anything in his life and the life of his family. The hero lowered his head in disappointment. After thinking about it, he looked at his father and said that he had decided to participate in the National Martial Arts exam. The whole family was surprised. Everyone froze with food in their hands. The hero thought that he probably hoped in vain that his family would be able to afford the entry fee. Ping looked nervous, thinking that it would be better to think of alternative paths. Laughing awkwardly, he said that this was just a word, let them not pay attention. Someone's hand extended a bank card. Ping was shocked, looking at it. Looking at his plate, Ming Rong asked again, the entry fee is 10,000, right? He heard about it from his colleagues. His son did not express his desire, so he did not mention it. The guy can withdraw the money tomorrow. His son looked at him confused, hearing that it did not matter whether he passed or not, if his heart wanted it, it was worth it. The hero thought that even if his family was so poor, his father gave him this money and even made sure that he did not worry. He looked at the bank card, thinking that if he did not pass, how could he repay his understanding and support? But, squeezing it in his hand, the hero decided that to hell with it, no matter what happened, he would succeed this time. On the white building, there were golden hieroglyphs. Holding the money in his hand, the hero felt something strange. Different letters appeared in front of his eyes. As soon as he touched the bill, a notification appeared right in front of his eyes. Among other symbols, messages appeared that the conditions were met, connection attempt, connection successful. In his past life, he read many stories about those who were reborn. Later, a status screen appeared, balance $10,000, energy 1, intelligence 1. It was definitely a system. Clouds were floating across the sky. The sun was shining on the hero's house. Ping was lying on the bed. He remembered looking at the status screen. His hands were holding his head. He was thinking about how he had a system. What happened? As soon as he received cash, the balance was replenished. Now in front of him was the status that the balance was 10,000, energy 1, intelligence 1. Only if the money was his, otherwise nothing would work. Afterwards, he took the bill in his hands, noting that even if there was not enough money, it still counted. Sitting on the bed, the guy thought that since the balance had changed, it was obvious that he could raise both energy and intelligence. Clearing his throat, he tried, telling the system to raise his stats. But the information in the window remained unchanged. The hero looked at it with displeasure. Then Ping tried, using different gestures and movements, saying, "Oh great system, can I use money to raise stats? Oh my god, raise the stats. NPU, let it be a good system." After that, he looked at the information window again with displeasure, wondering what was wrong with his cheats. Raising his hands, the hero cursed, saying that he shouldn't have appeared so late, let him raise the energy or he would delete it. Suddenly, a red light surrounded him, after which the window appeared again with a balance of 0, energy of 1.1, intelligence of 1. Ping opened his eyes wide. Lowering his head, his heart began to beat faster. Energy increased. Looking at his hands, he realized with surprise that's how it was. Closing his eyes, the hero raised his head, realizing that 10,000, his father's savings, raised energy by only 0.1, but even so, this amazing feeling, as if he could move mountains. Suddenly, he opened his eyes again. It can't be. The money was still lying on the table. Looking at it with relief, he said that fortunately, his money was in place. It seemed that the virtual score had no effect on the real one. How would he explain this to his parents? Yuen eavesdropped outside his door, thinking that her brother had completely lost his mind. Clouds floated across the sky. The sun illuminated the walls of the building. The teacher stood in front of the students, saying that everyone who had signed up for the exam should come to the teacher's office to register. Ping stood up from his desk, and his friend asked if he was going to the restroom again, but the hero awkwardly put his hand on his head, saying that he was going to register. The guy with glasses opened his mouth in surprise. The sign above the door said teacher's room. As one of the students entered, she told him that she did not expect to see him, adding that his cultivation was as insignificant as his dignity. Taking a pen in his hand, he thought that it was a shame, of course, but he really had nothing to say. The value of one must be monstrously small. Giant brazenly put his hand on him, saying that he probably hadn't even checked yet. The person sitting next to them said that last time he got 108, but the hero couldn't compare to his result. Ping's eyes widened in surprise. He seemed not to notice anyone around him, thinking that it was impossible. The difference was simply colossal. But the student who looked at him said that he could come and check after school. Jumping up, the hero got angry, telling him that he was a rich kid. Where did he get a cultivation tester from? Yahello just looked at him and said that it was important for him to check his cultivation regularly, so his father bought him one. Of course, it couldn't compare to the official ones, to which the hero thought that even the oldest used tester cost from $1,000. The hero looked stupid and confused, not understanding why they were so expensive. In his past life, even the coolest blood pressure monitor did not cost more than $1,000. Do they live in gold mines? The rays of the sun illuminated the window. Yahello and Ping were standing near the chair. The hero sat down. His companion was looking at something on the monitor. He was shocked by what he saw when the hero asked if the result had already been announced. He opened his eyes wide, not believing that Ping's cultivation was really 113. The blue screen showed a Kai reserve of 113. Ping looked satisfied, realizing that he should have guessed. This world and the system use different counting systems. The system displays 1.1, while in reality he has 113, so the ratio is 110-0. Yahello turned to the hero and asked why he hid it, saying that his cultivation was second in the class, and the hero was not at all surprised. Meanwhile, Mingrong was counting money, saying that he heard from the boss that martial arts require tens of thousands for the simplest pills. Since Ping decided to go down this path, they can't ignore it. His wife handed him more money, saying that they had 20,000 left from their savings, and if that wasn't enough, she would try to find it. Suddenly, they turned around to hear their daughter screaming that those whose Kai reached 110 could already be considered martial practitioners, so her brother could be 113. His hand was holding Yuan's cheek. Holding her face, he replied that it couldn't be helped. Her brother was an extremely gifted person, and this year he would lay his hands on the martial arts exam as well. Yin came out to the children, telling the boy to come over as they had something to tell him. Getting up from the sofa, the boy said that he was coming. The girl complained in tears that her brother was bullying her again. He looked at her mother in confusion, wondering what was going on. Entering their room, he immediately noticed a serious, suffocating aura. The father looked at his son with a smile, asking him to come over. Pulling his hand, Mingrong put money in his palm, saying that they had decided to support him on his journey. This is money for pills, and let him speak up if it is not enough. Holding the money in his hand, the guy saw that the balance had been replenished by 20,000. Mingrong smiled, saying that they almost robbed him of a chance for a great future due to their carelessness, and now they will fully support him in the exam. Ping looked shocked, at a loss for words. Later, he sat in his room, debating whether to spend the money on pills. He imagined himself holding one. Then he swallowed it, but the result was only gas. The hero was angry. Closing his eyes and smiling, he realized that compared to the system, they were completely useless. The status screen hung above his head. The sun was shining on the walls of the school again. The tired hero walked up the stairs, thinking about how he tried to strengthen his spirit last night. The screen displayed a balance of 10,000, energy 1.1 and intelligence 1.1. The system still wrote off 10,000, but this feeling was as if all his thoughts were cleared and reached enlightenment. He imagined himself running naked across the field, describing it as thoughts began to run at an incredible speed, an incredible feeling. Sitting at the table, there were many formulas in his head. He thought about how attention, analysis, and memory had increased many times over. Yawning, the hero summed up that he spent the night studying and realizing his new capabilities. Someone's foot fell off the steps. Yahello pounced on the hero. They fell to the floor together. Getting up, the hero shouted that he was in pain, but the guy replied that he hid it well. That he had 113 units. Just think, even he only had 110. When did he manage to? The rest of the students went down the stairs, greeting Ping. The hero already realized that now the whole school knows about it. Someone grabbed Giant by the collar. The guy threw Giant aside in one motion. After that, he sat down opposite Ping, comparing himself to him. He had outstanding muscles, a strong physique and 108 points, while the hero only had weak muscles, a skinny physique, but 113 points. After that, the guy frustratedly rushed along the corridor. An elderly teacher noticed them and was glad that they were still here. Approaching the hero, he handed him several books, asking him to hold them. Looking at them, Ping was surprised. On the top book, it was written that this was the Basic Theory of Martial Arts, Volume 1. The man pointed to it, saying that it was worth reading these books. They contain martial arts training schemes. Since the hero is now also a practitioner, then good luck to him. Even though he is one step behind the others, the teachers will help. Hearing this, the hero opened his eyes wide. Then he smiled and thanked the teacher, thinking that he had absolutely nothing to do in the classroom before, so this is great news. I must say that they are good people. The man started to leave, saying that he needed a few people, he had a task for them. Ping just looked at him questioningly. Then the man looked at the hero, saying that he had asked the director several times before he had the opportunity to go for one of the best in the university. The gray building was illuminated by bright rays of sunlight. Someone was standing in front of him, saying that he had not been here for a long time. A guy with short hair was holding his suitcase by the handle. He smiled. Jinyang, Nanjing School of Science and Technology, 5th year. Several students waved to him, saying that they were here. Jinyang was surprised to see them. As he crossed the road, he told them that they had done well. The hero thought that the guy looked rather mediocre. He was looking at his phone screen. The hero closed his eyes and thought that even if he was a martial artist, he looked like just another dreamer who had just entered university. Ping remembered how the students looked at him angrily, calling him ignorant. He just asked, "Who is Jinyang?" He just scratched his face in confusion, clarifying that he should know all their idols. One of them covered her face with her hand. Then she pulled back her jacket, showing a t-shirt with the words "I love Jinyang" written on it, and pointed at the hero with her finger. He stood there completely confused. The girl introduced the guy reading, describing him as a 19-year-old man who loves apples, and frankly, there are almost no things he doesn't like. Then the guy walked, waving to people in cars. His favorite pastime is hardening his body and mind. After Jinyang, he held his honors diploma. He never gave up on the path of practice. In the previous exam, he got into the university as the best combat practitioner. The guy ran in the rain, and the girl said that he was also the first to enter a prestigious university from the lower classes. Then he confidently looked at his hand, and the girl clarified that he was only a first-year student, but had already become a cultivator. The student hugged herself, telling the hero that even such an ignoramus as Ping, maybe he doesn't know the hope of all the lower-class students. Later, the hero looked behind him in surprise. Everyone was celebrating Jinyang, shouting "Welcome back. Please say something." He smiled awkwardly, saying that they were being too polite. The bus was moving quickly along the road. Someone asked him to share his secret of how he was able to enter the martial arts world from the lower classes. Then Ping, without turning his head, still listened. Jinyang introduced several circles, talking about the 5 major tests of martial arts: political career, culture, specialty, experience, and physical strength. The girl sitting next to him looked at him lovingly when he said that everyone present had a Chi value of 10, but even so, to meet the requirements. Everyone's mouths dropped open in surprise when they heard that it would be dangerous. Jinyang looked serious, saying that if they could control their emotions, the result might be different to some extent. The students looked at him silently. The other guys were also silent. Holding up his finger, the guy also said that it was happiness, anger, sadness, and inspiration. If any of the emotions went beyond the limit, your Chi would start to boil and become unstable, especially rage. It was simple, but the consequences were significant. Also holding up his finger, Jinyang smiled, suggesting that they imagine being humiliated as an example. Looking at the guy, Ping thought, how can one imagine a feeling? The bus was passing by other cars when Jinyang continued, saying that if one had experience, the physical test was not a problem. It was simply a test of explosive power, agility, and body stability. Of course, this did not apply to those scum who achieved results by taking all sorts of drugs bought with family money. On the instruments, their strength was good, but their foundation was as shaky as a house of cards. Besides, they would not become fighters. He noted with a slight smile on his face that if they could not kill a chicken or even a pet without hesitation, then what could they say about humans? Then he smiled even more, saying that killing people was completely different from slaughtering chickens. Ping widened his eyes in surprise. He turned to look at Jinyang, thinking that he was saying it so naturally, he must have killed many times before. There was still a strict law in this world. He shouldn't have the opportunity to kill, right? Watching the girl glance at the guy, the hero also thought that besides, he was just a freshman. The rays of the sun illuminated the protagonist's modest house. His mother asked why Ping got up so early since he didn't have to go to school. He replied that he was just driving his eldest home from university and would drop him off at school for his speech later. Now he was lying on his bed, remembering Jin Young's face and his words about killing people being completely different from slaughtering chickens. Ping looked sad, thinking about killing. How could he say it so naturally? Getting out of bed, the hero decided that he had already killed. The phone on the table rang. Putting it to his ear, the guy heard that new information had appeared. The target had escaped to Kanchan. There is a border between provinces if the target escapes. Standing with one towel, Jin Young clarified, didn't he say not to do anything until he arrives? The target should stay where he is. Let them watch. Opening the curtain, the guy heard the answer that if the target escapes, the people above would not mind sacrificing them. To which the guy replied that it was their problem. How about it? Jin Young stood by the window, saying that he would pay 500,000 to catch him, alive or dead. Meanwhile, Ping folded his hand in front of his face. Sitting on the bed, he told himself to concentrate. A glow appeared on his fingertips. Suddenly, an aura surrounded him. The hero noted an increase in energy by 0.1. The information about balance, energy, and mentality was blurry. His heart ached. Ping opened his eyes in surprise, after which he grabbed his chest. His hand was squeezing the blanket, and losing his strength, he fell onto the bed. Charges ran through his nerves. The hero felt every cell, the way the blood flowed through his veins. With his eyes wide open, the hero thought about how much pain he was in. Veins appeared on his arms. He was just trying to breathe. After which, sitting on the bed, he thought that everything was fine last time, so why is it so painful this time? Ping looked at his arm in surprise. Veins were still visible on them. His body can't withstand the pressure, or is this a side effect of merging external energy with the body? But rubbing his biceps, he decided to hell with it. He was even starting to get used to it. The blood seemed to boil, spilling out at an incredible speed. Opening his mouth, the hero said precisely. Already on the way out of the house, he put on his jacket, remembering that he needed to take Jin Young to school. The hero passed by a masked man. At the exit, he accidentally pushed him. Turning around, Ping apologized. He sat down on the floor, covering his knife with his hand, and told him not to worry. With a deft movement, the man hid the knife in his sleeve. Still looking at him, our guy thought it was strange. He did not remember him living here. He only turned his eyes towards Ping. Jin Young entered the bus, apologizing for being late. A student sitting there called him over. Jian was sitting next to Ping, saying that the teachers were incredible. They seriously invited Jin Young to help the lower classes with the exam. Looking at his interlocutor, the hero asked again what was so special about a graduate returning to his school. But looking strangely at the hero, the guy replied that an ordinary graduate, yes, but not Jin Young. He was a completely different story. Jin Young walked along the bus, waving his hand to everyone, hearing that he was a cultivator. Ping looked at the passing star, hearing that cultivators in the entire city were worth their weight in gold. But Jin Young was only a freshman. Even an ignoramus like him should know what that meant, a terrifying talent. Unexpectedly, Jin Young touched the hero's shoulder. With his hand on him, he said that the hero was trying his best to become a cultivator, but he should keep in mind that his body was weak. With such a foundation, he wouldn't get far. Raising his head, Ping also heard that Jin Young had no idea what kind of pills he was taking, but his Kai had risen too much recently, and he thought that Jin Young had noticed it somehow. As he sat down, Jin Young said that such medicines couldn't be swallowed like candy. A single mistake could cost him his career as a cultivator. He adjusted his bag, continuing to say that if he were to increase his Kai without physical training, it would only lead to death due to his own negligence. Turning to him, the hero thanked him for the warning and thought that it was the power of a cultivator. He was able to accurately determine the concentration of his Kai with a quick glance. Later, stars were visible above the hero's house. Ping was working out in the backyard, after which he moved on to working with the press, so the guy started doing push-ups, and then he moved on to squats. Wiping away the sweat, the guy thought that he did not feel tired at all. Was it because of the increase in Kai in the morning? As expected, he would need to consult with Jin Young. He needed to optimize his training. Suddenly, he felt someone's gaze on him. The hero turned around and saw someone's silhouette in the window. Looking closely, the hero noticed a familiar cap and realized that it was the man from the entrance. Ping looked out the window. Raising his eyebrows, the hero thought, is this bloodlust? A frightening power. But approaching the door of his apartment, the hero decided that this was none of his business. Now there are more important things to do. The news was on TV. The presenter was talking about a stage 2 cultivator killing his partner after a robbery, not sharing the spoils with him. Ping passed by his sister on the couch, hearing that according to the investigation by law enforcement, the suspect was seen in the city. It was recommended that citizens take standard security measures, lock their doors and windows. His sister said that she should not go to school for now because if something happened to her, the world would be sad, the whole world would lose its colors. Our guy sarcastically replied that who else would need her except them. Yuan threw a bag of chips at him, screaming at him to go and kill himself. but the hero turned his gaze. He saw the moment of injury from the cameras. The host said that an interested netizen processed the video through his own software, even getting a crystal clear photo of the murder weapon. Ping sat in front of the TV, watching carefully. The screen showed the moment of injury, and the hero thought that he had seen this knife somewhere. Dim lights illuminated the night street. The guy picked up a dagger, after which he swung it at the lying protagonist. The protagonist looked in front of him in horror. A dagger appeared before his eyes. Blood gushed in the air. The protagonist abruptly jumped out of bed, thinking that he remembered. Ping remembered seeing the news on TV, after which he remembered running into a man in the building who told him not to worry. The man covered his hand with a knife. The protagonist imagined an image of a man with a bloodthirsty grin. He noted that this knife was exactly the same as that guy's. The protagonist looked in front of himself with panic in his eyes, remembering the dream. He noted that it was just a dream, but the bloodlust was very real. The protagonist remembered the girl on the news. The protagonist noted that the suspected Stage 2 cultivator had escaped from the police in the next room, and that it was just a coincidence. The protagonist widened his eyes, wondering that he wouldn't target him. The protagonist remembered eating at the table with his family. He remembered his father handing him money. Ping remembered looking at the system. He remembered holding the papers in his hands. Ping wondered if he knew about his money, noting that it was impossible. Even so, their family was too poor for him, and could it be that it was because of the system? But only he could see it, and he shouldn't have known. The protagonist clutched the blanket in his hand. He thought that this nightmare was scary. The protagonist lowered his head, thinking that he needed to pull himself together, as this was just a dream, and he would hope that it would not come to this, and he needed to become stronger. The protagonist looked ahead with a frown, noting that he needed to act quickly, and he could not risk his health as well as the health of his family. The sun began to rise over the city. The sunlight illuminated the building. The host noted that the internet was saying that it was irrational to close the city because of one second stage cultivator, asking his colleague what his opinion was. The number 201 was visible on the wall. The man said that in his opinion, it was time for people to stop underestimating the power of cultivators. The guy kept his hand on the radio. The man said that even the weakest cultivator could easily deal with the police, since the police were tasked with capturing a second stage cultivator. In order to avoid more casualties, they must. The guy threw the radio into the box with things. The man held a cap in his hands, looking into the box. He noted that these scoundrels were serious about him and that he should lie low for now, adding that there were no cameras on this street and that he would hide there until things calmed down. The man looked to the side, hearing a knock, asking what was knocking. A slightly dim light was visible behind the door. The man looked tensely towards the door. He walked up to the door and opened the latch. The man opened the door and smiled broadly, saying that it was nice to meet him, noting that he had only moved in the previous day, asking how he could help. The man looked ahead in bewilderment as the protagonist hid behind the door. The man began to look around the stairs while Ping ran into the apartment. The protagonist was sitting on the couch, waving his hand at the man, wishing him a good morning. The man did not understand when he managed to enter. The brown-haired man turned his head away, frowning. He thought he needed to calm down and be a good neighbor. The man smiled awkwardly, saying he thought he had made a mistake and it wasn't his door. The protagonist smiled at the drink, saying it wasn't and he really just wanted to watch football, but his TV was broken. The protagonist stuck a straw in the drink, saying that was why he came to see him, and even grabbed some snacks as compensation. The protagonist smiled widely and handed him the drink, telling him to drink it and watch it with him. The protagonist watched the TV with fascination. The commentator said it was an incredible shot. Suarez made a pass and just incredible, he scored a goal. The man clutched the drink in his hand. He looked ahead in irritation, thinking that this couldn't go on any longer, wondering what he was doing there, adding that he must be an agent. The protagonist looked at the man with displeasure, saying that he was so angry and he was clearly faking, asking the man if it was true. The brown-haired man thought that either he was just a naive idiot. The brown-haired man looked at the guy with irritation. He thought that he needed to get rid of him quickly before he caused him any more problems, and that this was not an option since there would be even more problems and it would be better to just let him go. The man looked at the protagonist, asking that he didn't have to go to school. Ping answered that there was no school on the weekends. The protagonist lowered his head, looking down. The man said that his parents must be worried. Ping looked at the floor with a sad look, asking the man that he just wanted him to leave. The man smiled confusedly, saying that he was just worried. Ping said that everything was fine and he understood. The protagonist looked at the brown-haired man with tears in his eyes. He said that he just wanted to make friends with the new neighbor, but in the end, he was just a nuisance as usual, adding that he was just a lonely junior with no friends. The man opened his mouth wide, looking at the protagonist in shock and asking him for forgiveness. The protagonist opened the curtains, putting on an apron. He asked to let him help clean before leaving, noting that he would quickly arrange everything, and there was not enough light, so he would start with him. The man ran to the curtains, closing them. The protagonist looked at the man in bewilderment, asking what was wrong. The brown-haired man smiled awkwardly, thinking that he was used to living in the dark, so it happened reflexively. The man said that he was very sensitive to ultraviolet light. The protagonist smiled awkwardly, saying that then he would start with the bedroom. The man blocked the passage, thanking him for the offer, noting that he could clean it himself. Ping said that everything was fine and they were both men and he understood everything. The man smiled confusedly, wondering what an idiot he was and when he would leave. The man asked if it was time for him to have lunch. The protagonist looked at his watch, noting that it was already lunch. The protagonist waved at the man, saying that he was going then, wishing him luck. The man told him to come back again. The brown-haired man grinned contentedly, thinking that finally, the protagonist tripped over a box, after which he fell to the floor. The man looked at what was happening in horror. Ping grabbed his head, looking behind him. Bloody clothes flew out of the box. Ping asked the man what it was. The man took a step. The protagonist's eyes widened. The brown-haired man swung his leg at the protagonist. He kicked the protagonist, causing him to fly into the wall. The man picked up a knife from the floor, after which he removed the bandage from him. Ping grabbed his mouth with his hand. The man approached the guy, holding a knife to his throat. The brown-haired man looked at the protagonist with a bloodthirsty look. The author noted that it was extreme bloodlust. The protagonist looked at the man in horror. He smiled in confusion, telling the man to calm down, and this will not leak out, since he swears that he will not tell anyone. The man frowned, noting that he will not be able to tell anyone anyway, since he is going to kill him. The man swung his knife. The protagonist frowned, gritting his teeth. He thought that he needed to do something, and he cannot die like this. The man stopped abruptly. He narrowed his eyes, wondering what was happening and that he was drugged with something. The man began to remember the smiling protagonist with a drink and how he drank this drink. The protagonist thought that now was the right moment. He swung his hand, knocking out the knife. The knife pierced the floor. King quickly ran to the side. He picked up a stick. Then he hit the man on the head. The protagonist looked at the man with a serious look, saying that he believed the pills had started to work. The protagonist held the stick in his hands, thinking that it was good that he had left the stick there when he entered. The man began to slowly rise to his feet. The protagonist looked at the man in surprise, asking why he had not been knocked out. The brown-haired man swung his fist. He hit the protagonist in the stomach. Blood appeared from the protagonist's mouth. The protagonist pushed the man away from him. He looked ahead in shock, thinking that he had been reborn with the ability to use the system. The protagonist tightly clutched the stick in his hands, noting that he could not lose this chance and he had to survive. Ping began to beat the man with the stick. The man's head fell back, after which he fell to the floor, hitting his head on the wall. The man sat near the wall with his eyes closed. The protagonist stared at the man. He thought that he had underestimated him and that stage 2 cultivators were also strong, and if he hadn't drunk the pill drink, he would have died, adding that he was scared. A beautiful orange sunset could be seen above the building. The protagonist sat near the bag, counting his money, adding that his balance had not increased. The man sat tied up on a chair, watching the protagonist. The protagonist said that apparently the system did not count this money as his. The man looked at the protagonist in surprise. He noted that he had just noticed that he had a huge reserve of blood and Kai, wondering that he was studying martial arts. The man noted that his name was Huang Wu and he was a stage 2 cultivator, adding that he didn't expect to be defeated by a martial arts student, wondering that he was an agent sent. Wu looked at the protagonist in fury, asking who the hell he was. The protagonist put on a suit with a smile, looking at the man. He said that he was Detective X and his job was to catch criminals. Wu asked where he got that damn tuxedo. The protagonist held out a bag in front of him, asking that the wanted criminal only stole 200,000 yuan and 2 bottles of pills. Wu told him to mind his own business. Wu frowned at the protagonist, thinking that he needed those pills to advance to the 3rd stage of cultivation, and he didn't expect that those pills would fall into the hands of this stupid guy. The man smiled maliciously, calling out to the martial arts disciple. The protagonist looked at Wu with a cold gaze. Wu asked if he wanted to make a deal. Wu looked at the protagonist with a serious gaze, asking if he wanted to make a deal. The protagonist looked at the criminal with a cold gaze. The criminal stared at the protagonist, saying that if he released him, he would get these pills and 200,000 yuan, adding that there were 2 more bottles, one with simple pills, the other with pills for advancing to the next stage. Dim light penetrated the room. Wu said that there was also a bottle of bone-tempering pills and 2 bottles of stage 2 medicinal pills. The protagonist looked at the criminal dumbfounded. Wu said that the market value of all these items would be 5,240,000 yuan. King wondered, what, in the martial arts world, the prices are really that high and a few bottles of pills are worth millions. The man grinned wickedly, asking what a tempting offer this was. The protagonist stood motionless, looking at the criminal. Wu pointed out that these Kai and blood-tempering pills would be useful for his examination and cultivation in the future, as would the stage 1 pill he was holding in his hands, all of which were necessary for a martial artist. The protagonist held a green pill in his hands. The criminal stared at the protagonist as he imagined the pills. He said that after fighting continuously for several days, they were even more effective than ordinary cayenne blood tempering pills, noting that the bone tempering pill and the medicinal pill were in the bag. The protagonist looked at the man in surprise, imagining him being torn apart. Wu said that in fact, martial artists are ordinary people who break through the limits of the human body, and if he does not have strong bones and does not drink pills to protect his weak organs, someday his cayenne blood will exceed this limit and he will definitely die. The man slightly tilted his head, asking if he had finished pondering. The man moved his hands behind his back, trying to untie the rope. He said that if he let him go, all of this would be his. The man looked at the protagonist with a menacing gaze. He noted that if he turned him over to the police, he would not be able to get them anymore, adding that he should not think about the fact that if he killed him, then everything would be over. The protagonist's eyes widened. The criminal said that the trail he left behind could lead them to his location in about a month and 10 days. After that, if they found him and saw that he was dead, he would not get away with it. The protagonist looked at the criminal in confusion. Wu said that he was still very young and his cayenne blood were already so high, and he would have a great future, adding that dying with him was not worth it. The man smiled wickedly, thinking that whatever this brat had slipped him had a strong effect, and he needed a little more time to replenish his strength. The protagonist looked away in confusion, thinking that what he said was that if he killed him, the Yang City authorities would find out. The protagonist looked at the criminal with a serious look. He thought that if he let him go, he might come back for revenge, noting that he was a stage 2 martial artist and it was too dangerous. Ping looked at the floor sadly, thinking that it would be better to give these things to the police. Ping clutched the bag in his hand. He thought that all of this was worth millions and would definitely be confiscated. The protagonist looked at the bag. He thought that in order to become a martial artist, the cayenne blood level needed to be 150, and even if he had the system, he would still need money to become a martial artist, adding that 5 million could completely change the cayenne blood level, but even these pills would be enough to become a martial artist. The protagonist furrowed his brows, wondering what he should do. Ping imagined Jinyang with a frown. He wondered if he could ask Jinyang for help, thinking that resources were important to a martial artist, but what if Jinyang wanted to get it all and killed him? The man smirked maliciously. The protagonist thought that if he didn't deal with this guy, he would definitely kill him. Wu asked that it was really necessary to think about one question for so long, noting that it was 5 million, and it didn't matter what he thought about it since he was the only one who would benefit. The protagonist leaned over, thinking that there was a ferocious tiger in front of him and a hungry wolf behind him, adding that he could only pray that the chances of meeting this hungry wolf were 0. The protagonist reached out his hand for the stick. Ping gripped the stick tightly in his hand. The criminal looked at the protagonist in confusion, asking what he was doing. Ping began to massage his hand, saying that he was wondering if he would let him go if he agreed to the deal. Wu looked at the guy in fear, saying that of course he would let him go since he was a man of his word. The criminal pulled his hand out of the rope. Then he swung his fist at the protagonist, saying that time was up and he was a dead man. The protagonist hit the man on the head with a stick. Clouds covered the mountain peaks. Sun City, Kangshan. The guy held a flashlight in his hand. He lit the way in front of him. Jinyang walked along a path in the middle of the forest. He looked in confusion, thinking that he had looked everywhere, wondering where that rat was hiding. The guy's phone began to glow. Jinyang brought the phone to his ear. The protagonist asked the guy if he could hear him, noting that his name was Ping. Jinyang continued walking along the path, asking what happened and why he was calling him. The protagonist stood next to the phone with a smile. He noted that he didn't know how to say it, asking if he was still in the city. Jinyang said that he was still in the city. The protagonist noted that he actually met a wanted criminal and accidentally hurt him. Jinyang looked at the phone in confusion, wondering if he had captured the wanted criminal Wu. The protagonist said that Jinyang's brother was the only martial artist he knew in Sun City, so he called him. The night sky was visible above the building. A light bulb illuminated the apartment number 201. Jinyang stood next to the door, thinking that it couldn't be true and a stage 2 martial artist was captured by a martial arts student, adding that it was hard to believe and even he would have to be very careful if he encountered Wu. The protagonist opened the door, asking Jinyang why he was standing there. The protagonist told him to come in quickly, and he thought that he was not coming. Jinyang looked at the protagonist in confusion, saying that it was nothing, he was nearby, and besides, he was warning him that if he really told the truth, he would not be able to help him. Jinyang widened his eyes in surprise. Wu was sitting on a chair, tied up. Jinyang noted that it was Wu. The protagonist walked up to the man, saying that he was currently unconscious. The protagonist smiled slightly, asking the guy that if he turned him over to the police, would he get a reward. The guy looked at the protagonist in confusion, asking what he meant, telling him to clarify. Ping leaned over to the bag, saying that he would get straight to the point, and he found the valuables that he owned. The protagonist held the money and pills in his hands with a wide smile, saying that he would like to take them back. Jinyoung grinned wickedly, asking what he wanted to take away. The guy put his hands on his hips, asking that he didn't know why he was called a criminal, noting that he had killed many martial artists. Jinyoung's eyes widened in confusion. The protagonist said that this was why he asked for help from brother Jinyoung, offering him to take this and keep it for himself, noting that he could share it with him. Jinyoung sighed in relief, saying that he was a smart guy and that they would definitely cross paths in the future. The guy walked up to the criminal, grabbing his face. He said that, however, he needed to tell him something first, adding that he would not be able to use the medicinal pills and stage 2 bone-tempering pills. Jinyoung said that he would exchange it for one stage 1 pill and add another 1 million yuan in exchange. The guy took out a red pill, saying that he had almost broken through to the next stage and could easily afford the pills, noting that the price of this item was simply outrageous. Jinyoung put the pill in his jacket pocket. He said that he wouldn't be able to use this item, so he would take it away, and he should rest assured that after the breakthrough it would be easier to gather resources, and if he needed help in the future he should feel free to call him. Jinyoung narrowed his eyes at the protagonist, noting that he had finished speaking and he shouldn't worry about Wu since he would do something. The protagonist smiled widely, wondering if he also had some items in his pocket, and added that he needed to check something. Ping thanked the guy and said that he would take what he didn't need. The protagonist looked behind him with a smirk, thinking that everything was going well, and what about these items? The protagonist looked at the system window. He noted that now he could increase the balance in the system with additional training and enter the martial arts university. It would be easy. A system window appeared with the characteristics of balance, energy, and intelligence. The protagonist wondered if these items were supposed to be worth 3 million yuan and 500,000 yuan, and why they were counted as 2 million yuan and 400,000 yuan. The protagonist imagined the image of the market value and actual value pills. He wondered if this meant that the system ignored market prices and judged the prices of goods by their actual value, adding that he understood now. The protagonist looked ahead with a serious look, thinking that he had completely forgotten. He then looked behind him, asking Jinyoung what if the police wanted to get his confession. The guy stood next to the criminal, telling him not to worry since he wouldn't even have a chance to open his mouth. Jinyoung looked at the protagonist with a malicious grin, noting that he had been on the wanted list for a long time and would be killed anyway. A few days earlier, the protagonist reached out to his vibrating phone. On the phone, a message was displayed that Jinyoung had transferred 1 million yuan from his personal account. A system window appeared, after which the system window broke and began to transform into another. The protagonist looked ahead, noting that he had updated the system version and the indicators and units of measurement were no longer the same as before. The protagonist looked ahead thoughtfully. Ping noted that in the previous version of the system, energy could be increased by 0.1, which is approximately 10 units that could be obtained for 10,000 balance. However, since the last update, these indicators have become clearer. The protagonist closed his eyes when letters began to fly in the air. Ping wondered if he could use 1,000 from the balance to increase energy by 1. The protagonist began to increase energy by 1. The system window showed how the balance began to decrease. The protagonist bared his teeth angrily. He said that it worked, noting that if you are rich, you can cultivate, and if you are poor, you must train yourself, adding that this system is really one of those whose eyes widen with delight at the sight of money. The protagonist looked at his phone. Jinyoung wrote to Ping, asking if he received the money, noting that he also sent him something that he might need soon. Ping noted that he also sent something. The protagonist looked at the phone with a grin, thanking Jinyoung's brother. Jinyoung wrote that since he was born, he admired only a few people, and he was one of them. The protagonist, thinking that this was a message, even felt a little embarrassed. Yuan jumped on the protagonist's back, telling him to get out of bed since she was hungry. The protagonist grabbed his back, telling her to go and cook for herself then. Yuan said that if she could use his money, why would she waste her own, asking how such a sister could leave her little brother alone at home. The protagonist pulled his sister's cheeks, saying that he had already heard what she said. Yuan apologized to her brother. She handed the textbook to the protagonist, telling him to take it. The protagonist looked at the book. Yuan said that Jinyoung sent it. Ping asked what had already arrived. Yuan looked ahead in confusion, saying that she had heard that name somewhere before. Then she looked at the protagonist in confusion. Yuan widened her eyes, telling him not to say that he was that same martial arts practitioner from Nanjing University. Yuan looked at her brother with admiration, grabbing his hand. She asked when he had managed to meet Vanya, asking for help in getting his autograph. The protagonist asked that she was a member of his fan club. Ping looked at his sister in confusion. His sister said that an idiot like him would never understand how hot Jinyoung was. Ping said that he didn't want an idiot to tell him that. Yuan imagined girls saying that in Sun City, 3 out of 5 girls liked him, and the remaining 2 absolutely adored him. The girl imagined gender signs falling into a machine, from which money appeared. She said that their school had about 5,000 students, and the ratio of boys to girls was 2 to 3. Yuen said that an autographed piece of paper costs $10, 3,000 people is another 500 fanboys. Yuen looked ahead with a big smile, saying a total of $35,000, and that Jinyang is the best. Ping asked what made her love him so much. The girl grinned mischievously, saying that when the time came, she would get 70% and he would get 30%, and they would earn until their piggy bank was completely full. Yuen looked towards where the protagonist was standing, then followed him. She asked her brother where he was and how about he got 40% and she got 60. Yuen asked the protagonist how he could just leave, noting that they were not finished yet. The protagonist walked down the city street, wondering what Jinyang wanted from him, adding that he did not answer when he asked him. Ping began to tear open the cover. He looked ahead, dumbfounded. Ping was holding books in his hands, noting that they were techniques. The protagonist imagined a guy emitting red energy. He noted that he found this when he was in an internet cafe. To become a martial artist, one must follow 2 conditions. Ping imagined a guy clenching his hand into a fist. He pointed out that the first was high Kai and blood levels, and to become a martial artist, one had to surpass 150 energy levels, adding that the second was strong bones, and they could not be obtained through pills alone, so one also had to learn special techniques. The protagonist looked at the books with a smile, thinking that he was worried that he would not be able to find books on techniques, but he did not expect Jinyang to send them to him. The protagonist closed his eyes, recalling the street outside his house. He thought that his house's yard was small and he would not be able to train there. The man pulled a leaflet towards the protagonist. He shouted at him to buy it now to avoid paying utility bills and not to pass by, asking if he wanted to learn more since the supply was limited. The sky above the city was clear. The realtor said that in Guanhuyuan there was public transportation, suitable housing, not to mention that the apartments in this area were the best on the market. Sunlight shone through the curtains. The real estate agent said that the 2-story complex was 230 square meters and cost 860,000 yuan. The man looked away with a frown, thinking that judging by his appearance, he was probably a student. The protagonist said that the house was really nice and thought that was why it was so expensive. The man said that the house was quite expensive, asking if he wanted to look at a cheaper apartment. The real estate agent looked at the protagonist in surprise when he said that there was no need. The protagonist took out a card with a sly grin, asking if there were any offers or discounts that he could take advantage of. The man held out a box with a key to the protagonist with a sparkling gaze. The real estate agent said that of course he had made the right choice, noting that the apartment was wonderful and he would not find a house like this anywhere else. Besides, they had a lot to offer him and could negotiate the price of such a home. Not to mention that it came with some extra amenities, all for free, such as unlimited 5G internet and free premium channels on TV, and they also provided 40 inches TVs to new tenants. The agent smiled widely, holding the contract in his hands. He said that if he signed the contract, they would now give him a 5% discount, not to mention that their company would cover the cost of maintenance and utilities. Plus, if he put down a 20% deposit, he would ask the manager to give him a discount on the costs of the house. The protagonist signed the contract, looking sideways at the smiling agent. The realtor said that this apartment suited him very well, and when he met him, he already knew that a promising future awaited him. Ping handed the contract to the realtor and asked when he could move in. The man said that he could move in whenever he wanted and that he had nothing to worry about since they would be helping him with the financial procedures. Ping said that it was good to have money. The protagonist walked next to a building where a crowd of people were milling about. The brunette said that he was not sure how to tell his family about the house and where he got the money from, noting that he would not talk about it for now. The guy added that he now had a place to practice and also needed to buy furniture and other equipment. The protagonist clutched his key in his hand and looked to the side. The TV presenter said that the battle between Grandmaster Hua Peng and Mu was becoming increasingly intense. People were watching the live broadcast on TV. The reporter said that they were about 5 kilometers away from them, and yet they felt a huge pressure, suggesting that they come closer. Clouds of dust and smoke rose from the impact. The man said that the dense forest was almost destroyed. The attack hit the cliff directly. Rocks started flying off the cliff. The reporter said that Mu's thunderous wrath caused a landslide. A red energy sphere appeared in the air. The TV presenter said that Grandmaster Hua Peng responded with his signature 10,000 horse dash. Huge rocks fell off the cliff. The man looked back at the camera, telling them to be careful because rocks were flying. Rocks started knocking people down. Static appeared on the TV. The protagonist and the people watched in shock. The short-haired guy said that Grandmaster Hua Peng and Mu were very strong. The guy with bangs said that he heard that they were fighting for fun, and they were not even fighting with all their strength. Peng's mouth dropped in surprise. He thought that the signature punch of the Grandmaster Hua Peng was like a rocket launcher. The destructive power was about the same as a nuclear bomb, and it might even be there in complete strength. The live broadcast appeared on the TV again. The host said that he apologized for the inconvenience, and they did not expect that being far from the center of the battle, they would be hit, and if they were not stage 3 martial artists, they would have died already. The hero grinned maliciously, frowning his eyebrows. He wondered if he would ever become as strong as him, adding that one day he would also become a Grand Master. White clouds floated above the building. Yellow light illuminated the room and doors. The girl told her boyfriend that this sofa looked very beautiful, offering to buy it. The salesman noted that this beautiful girl had excellent taste and this sofa was of good quality, adding that it was currently on sale for only 79,999 yuan. The girl puffed out her cheeks, looking at the guy with displeasure. The guy said that he would think about it. The brunette fell to the floor, grabbing the guy's hand. She noted that he said that he loved her, asking that he lied. The guy said that they would buy it. The salesman smiled awkwardly, pointing his finger to the side. He apologized to the man, noting that this model of sofa had just been purchased by that young man. The protagonist stood at the checkout, pulling the card, after which he looked back with a wide smile. The night sky stretched above the house. Yuan was wringing out the laundry, looking at her mother with a grin. The girl said that it was already late and Ping still hadn't returned home and he was probably eating something tasty right now, noting that she should scold him when he returned. Yuyan asked if she hadn't talked to her brother on the phone, noting that there was a martial arts exam coming up soon and that he was preparing for it. The protagonist was visible outside the window. He was saying that one should keep one's back straight and not lower one's head. Ping stood in a pose with his arms stretched out in front of him and his legs spread apart. He mentally repeated that one should keep one's back straight and not lower one's head. The protagonist imagined the image of a skeleton and the image of human body muscles. He noted that the skeleton of an adult human consists of 206 bones, 29 bones form the skull, 51 bones form the torso, and 126 bones form the limbs, and the human body also consists of blood, flesh, and internal organs. The protagonist imagined the image of white and red energy. He noted that for martial artists, they must make sure that the different parts of their body interact with each other. The hero recalled books on martial arts. He noted that if he wanted to strengthen his bones properly, regardless of whether you are a martial artist or not, then he should learn the technique of tempering the body through the technique of strengthening the bones. The phone was lying on the floor, on which the name of brother Jinyang was displayed. Jinyang said that the technique of tempering the body focuses on compressing the blood and kai so that ultimately the endurance of the body increases, while at the same time absorbing this energy, the bones become stronger. The hero was lying on the floor in front of a notebook. He asked his brother that if it was impossible to increase his energy and strengthen his bones anymore, should he continue to try. Brother said that of course, and by combining these two techniques he can increase the effect of strengthening the bones, however, it is also very difficult. The hero wrote down all the information in his notebook. Jinyang said that if he wants to raise his level, he should choose one technique. A projection of a guy appeared above the phone, imagining images of animals. He said that if he trained his upper body, his body would be more stable, and if he trained his lower body, he would improve his body balance and speed control. The protagonist continued writing everything down in his notebook. He noted that he wanted to train his lower body, asking what technique he should choose. The guy replied that he should choose the body hardening technique, and that this was the first step to training his lower body. The phone screen showed the guy's name. Jinyang stated that, however, training his lower body was quite difficult, as he could get seriously injured, and he might never be able to walk normally again. The hero smiled confidently, stating that this was not important to him, but that he could run away if he was surrounded by enemies. The guy stated that this was the most cowardly strategy he had ever heard. The protagonist's eyes widened in confusion. Jinyang said that he had something to say. The brunette stood with his arms outstretched and his knees bent. Jinyang noted that his Kai level was not bad, and he could even pass the martial arts exam, but there was one problem. The phone screen showed the call time. Brother noted that using the body tempering technique and training hard, one could indeed increase the blood and Kai level, but this would reduce his real Kai reserve, adding that the exam would not be easy. White lightning began to emanate from the protagonist's legs. A projection of a frowning Jinyang appeared on the side of the phone. Brother noted that if the veins and arteries of the brain were damaged in any way, he would not be able to pass the exam. The protagonist pressed his hands down when lightning emanated from him. He noted that he should forget about failing the exam, and he might even have to stay for 2 years, but if he succeeded, he could increase his strength by as much as several units if his veins and arteries remained in order. The protagonist's eyes widened. He fell to the floor, breathing heavily. King noted that his first cultivation was successful. The hero looked at the ceiling with an exhausted look, thinking that as brother Jinyang said, his energy had increased significantly. The hero closed his eyes when a system window was visible above his head. The brunette noted that he needed to increase energy and intelligence. The numbers for energy and intelligence were visible on the system window. The protagonist jumped off the floor, looking at the window in surprise. He wondered what was now increasing by more than 1 and did not require any recharge. Ping smiled contentedly, clenching his hands into fists. He said that others can only cultivate once every 3 days and they need to use hundreds of 1,000 pills to replenish their energy. But as for him, he can cultivate as much as his body can withstand. Ping added that who knows, and maybe with the help of the system, he can even catch up with the Jinyang brothers and may even become stronger than him. The guys ran around the stadium. April 4, 2008, March 6th. The long-haired girl was training with a barbell. April 4, 2008, March 15th. The student was stuffing his mouth with food. April 4, 2008, March 28th. The protagonist wiped his sweat with a towel while holding a bottle to his mouth. Ping noted that there was very little time left before the exam. A dim white light illuminated the room faintly. The man said that in Luoting, Ruiyang City, there had been no new martial artists for a long time. The man tapped his finger on the table, noting that in the last 10 years, one could only imagine that there was not a single martial artist. An old man with a serious face sat in the chair. He said that they had already allocated a lot for martial arts, and all to no avail. The deputy leader of the supervision group in Nanjiang. Opposite the deputy, a man with his head down stood. The old man noted that if Jinyang from Nanjiang University had not cultivated last year, the city's Ministry of Education would have collapsed altogether. The man in the suit spread out and looked at the floor. The old man said that if at least 100 people with an energy level of 120 or higher martial artists, high-level masters, or martial arts students did not appear, the man's eyes widened in horror. The deputy told Director Qiming that then, he would be fired. There were students standing near the buses. May 5, 2008, Labor Day 1. Ping and Jian walked confidently along the road. The boy and girl huddled together, shedding tears. The brown-haired man said that last year the minimum energy level required was 112, and that he heard that this year they would raise the passing mark. The brunette said that their Kai was only 110. The boys said that they had no chance at all. A crowd of students gathered in front of the building. Jiahao approached the boys, telling them not to worry and just remember the blood and Kai release technique that Master Zhu taught them, noting that they would be fine. Jian put his hand on his friend's shoulder, asking how much Kai he had. Ping said that he did not know. The man called out to the boys, asking them to wait. The boys looked behind them. The man asked that his name was Ping. The hero looked at the man in bewilderment, asking what happened. Jiahao looked at the front dumbfoundedly, asking that he was the deputy director of the Ministry of Education. The deputy director smiled broadly, telling Ping that he had something to say, asking if he could talk to him alone. Tan Zhenping, deputy director of the Ministry of Education in Yangcheng City, a stage 1 cultivator. The protagonist and the deputy director went to a secluded place. Ping asked that if he came to him himself, it must be something important to note, so he would go straight to the point. Zhenping closed his eyes, clutching his neck with his hand. He said that he would then immediately say why he came. The cultivator imagined the image of the area on the map and the documents. He said that in addition to their city, there are 5 counties and 3 districts, noting that Yangcheng City, as a component, is not as good as the district, but is much stronger than these 5 districts, and every year the Ministry of Education keeps account of students who have successfully passed the martial arts exam, and such students are the top priority for the Ministry of Education. Zhenping looked at the protagonist with a serious look. He said that this time their students will take the exam together with students from Xingxi and Amping districts, asking Ping that his Kai indicator is more than 120. The brunette looked at the man warily, saying that he does not know this yet, and he will find out later. He wondered what the deputy director of the Ministry of Education is interested in what he does. The deputy looked at the hero intently. He noted that he recently met Vanya, and he mentioned him, and as far as he knows Jinyang, he only recognizes the ability. The hero looked at Zhenping from under his brows, stating that he did not understand what he meant. The cultivator furrowed his brows, saying that he hoped that during the time he had prepared for the exam, he had managed to increase his Kai level. Ping looked at the man doubtfully. The deputy turned his gaze to another direction. He stated that he should know that emotions had a huge impact on the blood and Kai of the students, noting that no one knew what the test results would be. The students were standing nearby with smiles. Zhenping asked if those guys were really that strong and that he lacked confidence and was also nervous, noting that emotional control of blood and Kai could be an advantage. The protagonist looked at the cultivator indignantly, wondering what he wanted him to do to affect the emotions of those students from other counties and districts. The hero said that it was unreasonable. Moreover, if you release your blood and Kai before the exam, it could affect the test itself. The cultivator looked at the protagonist with a sly grin. He noted that he could be sure that after the exam he would be given a pill for blood and Kai as compensation, and this elixir was worth hundreds of thousands. Zhenping imagined his hands reaching for the pill with a sly grin. He noted that in order to become a martial artist, one must bravely go into battle and a master must fight. Jianping added that sympathizing with his opponent was not in the spirit of a martial artist. Ping smirked slightly, thinking that a martial artist must fight, after which he shook the man's hand, noting that he would try. The deputy director's eyes widened in surprise. The hero looked at the cultivator with a smirk. Jianping began to mentally count that he had 120, 130, or even more, adding that this guy definitely had a high Kai indicator. The guys walked with wide smiles on their faces. Suddenly, the girl bumped into the guy's shoulder. The boys looked at Nan with excitement. The guy in the black suit said that in their day, even brats wanted to become masters. Nan said that she was hurt. Yahello grabbed the guy by the shirt, telling him to apologize to her quickly. The girls looked at what was happening in surprise. Yahello told him to do it faster. The guy grinned maliciously, asking what he was yelling about, noting that they were just a bunch of trash from a forgotten wilderness who only knew how to shout loudly. The student furrowed his brows in anger, noting that he did it on purpose. The protagonist's leg cast a shadow on the ground. He told the middle school boy who had just offended the girl that if he did not apologize, it would be difficult for him to gain a foothold in society. The student looked at the brunette in bewilderment. The black-suited students fell to the ground as the protagonist emitted a red aura. Ping said that he would teach him how to behave in society instead of his parents. The brown-haired man grabbed his throat with his hand, shouting that he couldn't breathe. The students in different schools grabbed their throats. The vice principal watched in horror. He noted that this energy was comparable to that of cultivators, wondering how Jinyang trained this guy.